Messenger by Lois Lowry, Chapter 17. By the second afternoon Matty was in agony, and he knew there was still a day to go before the worst of it. His arms, poisoned by the sap, had festered, and were seeping, swollen and hot. The path was almost entirely overgrown now, and the bushes clawed at him, scraping at the infected burns until he was close to sobbing with pain. He could no longer delude Kira into thinking this was an ordinary journey. He told her the truth. "What should we do?" she asked him. "I don't know," he said. "We could try to go back, I suppose, but you can see that the path back is blocked already. I don't think we could find the way, and I know I can't go through those vines again. Look at my arms." He gingerly pulled back his ruined sleeves and showed her. Kira gasped. His arms no longer looked like human limbs. They had swollen until the skin itself had split and was oozing a yellowish fluid. "We're close to the center now," he explained, "and once we get through that, we'll be on the way out. But we still have a long way to go, and it will most likely get a lot worse than it is already." She followed him, uncomplaining, for there was no other choice, but she was pale and frightened. When they came finally to the pond where he ordinarily refilled his water container and sometimes caught some fish, he found it stagnant. Once clear and cool, the water was now dark brown, clogged with dead insects, and it smelled of the kinds of filth he could only guess at. So they were thirsty now. The rain had stopped, but it left them clammy and cold. The smell was much, much worse. Kira smoothed the herbal salve on their upper lips and wrapped cloth around their noses and mouths to filter the stench. Frolic huddled head down inside Matty's shirt. Suddenly the same path he had always followed, ended abruptly at a swamp that had never been there before. Sharp, knife-like reeds grew from glistening mud. There was no way around. Matty stared at it and tried to make a plan. "I'm going to cut a thick piece of vine, Kira, to use as rope. Then I'll tie us together, so that if one of us should get stuck in some way—" Bending his grotesquely swollen arm with difficulty, he reached with his knife and severed a length of heavy vine. "I'll tie it," Kira said. "I'm good at that. I've knotted so much yarn and thread." Deftly, she circled his waist and then her own with the length of supple vine. "Look," she told him, "it's quite fast." She tugged at the knots, and he could see that she had done a masterly job of connecting them to each other, leaving a length of vine between. "I'll go first," Matty said, "to test the mud." "The thing I'm most concerned about." Kira nodded. "I know. There are muds called quicksand." "Yes, if I start to sink, you must pull hard to get me out. I'll do the same for you." Inch by inch, they moved through the swamp, looking for thickets of growth on which to place their feet, testing the suction when they were forced into the thick mud. The razor-sharp reeds sliced mercilessly into their legs, and mosquitoes feasted on the fresh blood. From time to time, they had pulled each other free when they were caught by the suction. Kira's sandals, first one and then the other, were sucked from her feet and disappeared. Miraculously, Matty's shoes remained, coated with the slippery mud, so that he appeared to be wearing heavy, wet boots by the time he dragged himself from the other side of the swamp. He waited there, holding the vine rope steady, easing Kira through the mud and up the bank. Then he used the knife and cut through the vine that had held them together in the swamp. "Look," he said, pointing to his feet, encased in mud, that were already drying into a crust. For a moment he had an odd desire to laugh at the grotesque thick boots. Then he saw Kira's bare feet and shuddered. They were raw, dripping with blood, from the reopened cuts she had previously suffered, and from new lacerations caused by the sharp swamp reeds. Matty climbed back down the bank, scooped wet mud with his hands, and gently coated her feet and legs, stopping the bleeding and trying to ease her pain with the thick, cool paste. He looked up through the tree growth to the sky, trying to assess the time of day. It had taken them a long time to cross the swamp. His arms were unusable, but he could still hold the knife in his swollen hands. Kira, her legs and feet in muddied shreds, knelt beside him, trying to catch her breath. The stench made it difficult for them to breathe, and he could feel the puppy choking from it inside his shirt. He forced himself to speak with optimism. "Follow me," he said. "I think the center is just ahead, and night is coming soon. We'll find a place to sleep, and then in the morning we'll start the final bit. Your father's waiting." Slowly he moved forward, and Kira rose onto her ruined feet and followed him. Matty felt his reason leave him now and again, and he began to imagine that he was outside of his own body. He liked that, escaping the pain. In his mind he drifted overhead, looking down on a struggling boy who pushed relentlessly through the dark, thorny undergrowth, leading a crippled girl. He felt sorry for the pair and wanted to invite them to soar and hover comfortably with him, but his bodiless self had no voice, and he was unable to call down to where they were. These were daydreams, escapes, and they didn't last long. "Can we stop for a minute? I need to rest. I'm sorry." Kira's voice was weak and muffled by the cloth covering her mouth. "Up here. There's a little opening. We'll have room to sit down." Maddie pointed and pushed ahead to the place he had seen. When they reached it, he shook his rolled blanket from his back and set it on the ground as a cushion. They sank down beside each other. "Look!" Kira pointed to the skirt of her dress to show him. The blue fabric, discolored now, was in shreds. "The branches seem to reach for me," she said. "They're like knives. They cut my clothes." She examined the ruined dress with its long ragged tears. "But they don't quite reach my flesh. It's as if they're waiting, teasing me." For a terrible instant Maddie remembered how Ramon had described poor Stocktender, who had been entangled by Forrest and whose body had been found strangled by vines. He wondered if Forrest had teased Stocktender first, burning and cutting him before the final moments of his hideous death. "Maddie, say something!" He shook himself. He had let his mind drift again. "I'm sorry," he said. "I don't know what to say." "How are your feet?" he thought to ask her. He saw her shudder and looked down. The encrusted mud he had applied as balm had fallen away. Her feet were nothing more than ragged flesh. "And look at your poor arms," she said. His torn sleeves were stained with seepage from his wounds. He remembered the days of village in the past, when a person who had difficulty walking would be helped cheerfully by someone stronger, when a person with an injured arm would be tended and assisted until he healed. He heard the sounds all around them, and thought them to be the sounds of village, soft laughter, quiet conversation, and the bustle of daily work and happy lives. But that was an illusion born of memory and yearning. The sound he heard were the rasping croak of a toad, the stealthy movement of a rodent in the bushes, and foamy bubbles belching from some slithery malevolent creature in the dark waters of the pond. "I'm really having trouble breathing," Kira said. Maddie realized that he was too. It was the heaviness of the air, with its terrible smell. It was like a foul pillow held tightly to their faces, cutting off their air, choking them. He coughed. He thought of his gift, useless now. Probably he still had the strength and power to repair his own wounded arms or Kira's tortured feet, but then the next onslaught would come, and the next, and he would be too weakened to resist it. Even now, looking listlessly down, he saw a pale green tendril emerge from the lower portion of a thorny bush and slide silently toward them. He watched it in a kind of fascination. It moved like a young viper, purposeful, silent, and lethal. Maddie took his knife from his pocket again. When the sinister, curling stem, in appearance not unlike the pea vines that grew in early summer in their garden, reached his ankle, it began to curl tightly around his flesh. Quickly he reached down and severed it with the small blade. Within seconds it turned brown and fell away from him lifeless. But there was no victory to it, only a pause in a battle he was bound to lose. He noticed Kira reaching for her pack and spoke sharply to her. "What are you doing? We have to move on in a minute. It's dangerous here." She hadn't seen the deadly thing that had grabbed at Maddie, but he knew there would be more. He watched the bushes for them. It had come for him first, he realized. He did not want to be the first to die, to leave her alone. To his dismay, she was removing her embroidery tools. "Kira, there's no time. I might be able to—" Then she deftly threaded a needle. To what? He wondered bitterly. To create a handsome wall hanging depicting our last hours. He remembered that in the art books he had leafed through at Leader's, many paintings depicted death, a severed head on a platter, a battle, and the ground strewn with bodies, swords and spears and fire, and nails being pounded into the tender flesh of a man's hands. Painters had preserved such pain through beauty. Perhaps she would. He watched her hands. They flew over the small frame, moving in and out with the needle. Her eyes were closed. She was not directing her own fingers. They simply moved. He waited, his eyes vigilant, watching the surrounding bushes for the next attack. He feared the coming dark. He wanted to move on out of this place before evening came, but he waited while her hands moved. Finally she looked up. "Someone is coming to help us," she said. "It's the young man with the blue eyes." "Leader? Leader's coming?" "He has entered Forest." Maddie sighed. "It's too late, Kira. He'll never find us in time. He knows just where we are." "He can see beyond," he said, and coughed. "Have I already told you that? I can't remember." "See beyond?" She had begun to pack her things away. "It's his gift. You see ahead, he sees beyond, and I—" Maddie fell silent. He raised one hideously swollen arm and looked listlessly at the pus that seeped through the fabric of his sleeve. Then he laughed harshly. "I can fix a frog."